Recording in progress.
Okay, welcome to the meeting of the ARPA Applications Review Committee. This is the meeting for March 1. We will start by rising for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We're going to start with a roll call. I'm not finding my alphabetical sheet, but we'll just go around the table, starting with me. Mike Brudinski, I'm here. Carl
Bonamico, I'm here.
Jackie McNamee here.
Rob Chris here. Chris Regan here.
Jesse Reynolds here.
Amy Walsh here.
Bob Gross here.
Craig Fishbein here.
Okay. Updates and procedural matters will come to the end of the meeting. We have some things to talk about there, but we'll start with the applications. Any recusals tonight for the ones that we're handling? Anybody speaking up?
Vogue. There's a client of mine.
Who is?
Vogue Mail.
Vogue is, you're recusing on Vogue Mail?
Yes, sir.
Great Fishbein. Anybody else recusing tonight? No other recusals. An applicant is sitting in the gallery, I guess I call it, from Tap and Vine. So let's start with Tap and Vine. And that is Amy Walsh is up to bat.
So Tap and Vine is requesting $24,736 funds for patio repair and outdoor furniture replacement since it was used heavily during the pandemic. They took advantage of their outdoor seating area. Their financials show a slight loss in 2019, a larger loss in 2020, and a middling loss in 2021. They received some PPP and loan assistance. Business is still not back to pre-pandemic strength. This project, in my opinion, does improve the business going forward and is not a temporary fix. In their application, it's pretty complete, providing a lot of detail. They, discuss the financial adversity that they're experiencing. The project, in my opinion, does assist the business in the long-term recovery and it's not a temporary fix. The budget is appropriate and according to our documentation. They included lots of documentation and their supporting things are pretty complete. And they can get going right away. So I gave it a high marks.
Bob Gross, only just around.
Oh, okay.
Clockwise.
I like the application. I thought they were thorough. I like to see applications like this. They were forthcoming with all the money that they received, whether they were loans or the restaurant revitalization grant, which many of them got but aren't listing on here. They were definitely impacted by COVID. Most restaurants were. Some of the assistance helped them back quite a bit, but I'd still grant them. I like to see what they're doing too. They're purchasing stuff that make the place better, not to potentially hire somebody or something like that. For that, I'll pass them.
Great.
Yeah, for some reason I was unable to. I opened the application. The other document I was unable to open until now. The one that has the backup with the tax returns. I originally scored it. On my score sheet, it just fell under the curve. But as we go around, I'm going to adjust my scores now that I've had an opportunity to see that additional backup, which is of solace to me. Does appear to be more than we've gotten on a lot of applications. So with that, that's all I have to say.
I'm looking at the numbers. There was a bit of a loss in 2019, a much greater loss in 2020. Came back a little in 2021, but
still not adequately, I'll say, meaning to me at least that the sting of the pandemic is still with them. They did get $120,000 in PPP that probably kept them afloat, so their financials don't look quite as bad when you add the PPP in. It's very refreshing to see the documentation supporting the amount of their requests. That's the lowest line, the lowest row. I gave them 15 out of 15 for that. And in every other category, they got a strong score from me. I have a tentative score, but we'll go around the table and see how that all shakes out and they adjust. Carl?
Well-prepared application, very thorough. Obviously, the restaurant, they've certainly been negatively impacted. The numbers show that. Keep in mind, in terms of the inflation index numbers of today, current year versus prior years, they did receive some PPP, completely justified in terms of the request. I have it as a very favorable score.
Jackie?
I agree. I have it as a very favorable score as well. I like the application, the plan that they intend to use the money for will continue to make their restaurant grow and be successful. So I scored it high.
Rob?
Yeah, I agree with all the previous comments. I would support the application.
Chris?
Strong pass for me. Wish more of them were like this.
Jesse?
Similar to Craig, I had a lower score until I got the rest of the backup stuff, and I actually didn't see the estimates and things like that until just a little while ago. So, no, really good application. I think it fits the mission statement of what this is all supposed to be about. So, yeah, absolutely.
So just a quick review of the scoring process. For business applications, a passing score has to begin with a 70 plus. And if the average score is 70 plus, it gets a favorable recommendation from the committee. Are we ready to hold on?
One thing, I just want to say one thing on this
Yeah.
application. We were talking about the PPP and the Restaurant Revitalization Fund, and they got a substantial amount. And the reason they got a substantial amount was because they had that loss. They had people on payroll. Because we're going to see some applications, or we've seen some applications, we get PPP of $2,000 or there's nobody on payroll, there's no payroll being done. So this is legitimate, and I just want to compliment that this is what you want to see. These are the kind of applications you want to give to. So.
Ready to go?
Yes.
Sign them, date them. It's passing them.
Chris Regan, 85. Jackie McAfee, 90. Mike Berdinsky, 96. Craig Fishbein, 80. Bob Burton, 80. Jesse Reynolds, 90. Amy Walsh, 93.
The amount of the grant request is $25,000, is it not?
24,736.
24 what?
736.
Okay, so therefore I make a motion based upon the average score that the committee recommend further favorable action in the amount of $24,736 in the matter of Tap and Vine.
Second.
We'll go around the table. Carl first.
Yes.
Jackie?
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Jesse?
Yes.
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 And Mike Berdinsky, yes, that carries. And we'll move on to the next one, which we will do, which will be Salon Array is coming back, so we'll just hold off on that, and we'll just start with It's supposed to be Clear Solutions, sewer and drain. Chris, just give me a minute before you start on that.
Do you have a stapler, Mike, or no? Stapler? There's probably one in here.
Maybe.
Probably, I hope they're locked.
Paper clips. She got paper clips, but it's still pretty impressive. Mary Poppins carpet.
Yeah, that way.
Yeah. Hold on, yeah. Coat rack with his jacket on it.
I'll just fold it over. It's okay.
Right in front of me. Chris Regan, what do you got?
So Clear Solutions Sewer and Drain, 12-year-old Wallingford business, providing a absolutely needed service, especially during the time of COVID. We've got an organization that had roughly $70,000 worth of revenue in 2019, running at a loss. 2020 saw a approximately $15,000 decrease in business, but we're able to turn that into a slight profit. Again, in 2021, they were unable to go back to 2019 levels and still showed a decline in revenue with a slight loss once again. Again, these guys have been here for 12 years, providing essential services. When you take a look at first category, I think it's clear that it did contribute to the hardship that they're facing. I don't think there's any question as far as upgrades to their services will allow them to better service their customers. I think the project is clearly appropriate and supported. We didn't get detailed quotes, even if I knew what I was looking at, if we got them, but the supporting documentation, without supporting documentation, in that case. And fourth category, 15 points, and agree the proposed timeline is reasonable in 12 months. Make the assumption that it is based on a business statement in the application. So it is a medium pass for me.
We'll just go around. Jesse, can you want to go second?
I wish that there were a little bit more details in the application itself, but similar to Chris, I really don't know anything about those things, but it would help. I mean, the numbers are sort of round and sort of allocated to certain things, but so that was somewhat problematic for me. I do think that, this kind of service, given what we just went through in terms of, having to clean sewers and things that's part of what is in the original ARPA intent. So this is something that's sort of tangent to that, in my opinion. So I didn't give it a high pass, but I did, I passed it. They demonstrated that, that they were impacted financially. That's all I got.
Yeah, I was disappointed in the lack of detail here. Somewhat hard to tell the degree to which they were, whether the project's going to sustain long term, and not a lot of documentation. I'm on the edge, but really low.
Tom Gross.
Okay, a couple things is, and we keep mentioning how the business is appropriate. That I don't think if it's a business and it's impacted by COVID, whether we think it's a good business or not business. I'm saying for future, for all of them, because any business, because a hair salon for you wouldn't be any big deal. Okay, so I'm getting a joke because you mentioned it before. But what I'm saying is, there's something really for an industry, but that's okay. Is a business impacted by COVID? If it's impacted by COVID and it's a reasonable request, then they should be, I think this kind of business is impacted by it more than we think, because as businesses shut down, this is what they do. They clean out drains, they clean out sewer lines for restaurants and those kind of things. So I think because of that, it was really impacted and business was down. And yes, documentation could have been better, but I gave them a just passing score.
Craig?
I just want to say I was in a good mood when I did these applications, when I reviewed this stuff. I did not score this application very high. First of all, based upon lack of documentation, but then looking at the financials. We look at the 2019 tax return. It indicates that there was a $9,000 loss that year. So that's pre-pandemic. So going into the pandemic, that is the financial situation of the company, with total assets of minus $1,800. When we look at 2020, middle of the pandemic, that kind of stuff, they made money. So ordinary business income was a positive $13,000, almost $14,000. So that's a swing to the positive during the pandemic of $23,000. The assets remain about the same. In fact, I think it's the same exact amount, $1,900. Then we look at 2021, and they're back to the negative, however, slightly at minus 2,000. So they're still ahead of pre-pandemic, right? But then we have this interesting number, which their assets become minus 4,403, which is a question that doesn't get ferreted out by the application, but based upon the numbers, I have trouble linking up an actual loss as a result of the pandemic to this application. That combined with the lack of backup, my takeaway was, okay, money's available, let's put in something, maybe we'll get money out of it. I understand the structure of the application is to shift the business operation to certain other things, but I have no indication that that shift was contemplated pre-pandemic. So I scored it accordingly.
I think there's some good points raised. It's a small business. It's close to the edge, even in good times, probably. 2019, they did have a loss. 2020, they came back. There's probably somewhat of a story behind that. The related business also did the same thing, which is very interesting because the owner has two applications on tonight. So it's a similar phenomenon. In 2021, there was a small loss. There are some flaws in the application. I think it's right on the edge for me. I want to hear more comments, but it's close to the edge. But Carl.
To me, it's not always in the numbers. It's a very small business during the pandemic. It definitely felt a negative impact. There's some declining revenue there. Was it poorly presented on the application? Sure. But you have a small business here that's losing money in 19. The story is always not told just looking at the asset picture. I think this is right where I believe a small business is appropriate in terms of receiving federal funds for this type of program. I'm voting at a moderate pass.
Jackie.
I agree with Carl. It's a small business that's been in town for 12 years. That's a long time. They're asking for $24,000, which I believe will continue, to use it for materials or items that will continue to move their business forward and allow it to grow. So I passed it.
Rob.
I have the same sentiments that Craig had mentioned. I mean, 2020 was the year that COVID really kicked in and their revenue went up. So apparently, when all those businesses were closed, they may have taken the opportunity to do some of this maintenance. So I had a hard time also with the degree to which COVID-19 really impacted the business. That being said, I did pass it, but barely.
Anyone else want a second bite, and we'll just go around, hold on.
You said, does anybody, so I said yes.
Gotcha, okay. What do you
I just
got?
wanted to mention
Whoop,
that
whoop, see, there you go.
oh, sorry, I thought you were pointing to me, says.
No, I was going around. then
I know, I just wanted to
Yeah.
say that this applicant's prior application, we already scored before, I believe.
No, we didn't.
No,
No, we didn't?
not zero.
No.
it's tonight.
Oh, I'm sorry.
They were
Confused.
scheduled, but we didn't get to.
ZR, got it, sorry, my thing's a little out of order. Anyway, go ahead.
Yeah.
That's all I had to say.
Okay.
And
Bob,
I know I've been hard on some of these, but I don't, and just as a question for Craig, you said they were shifting business. What do you mean they were shifting business?
Their application, they're asking for infrastructure to purchase a high-pressure jet system was half of their ask. And they say in the application, allow us to expand our services to include high-pressure jetting. So I took that as that they are not offering that service presently, and that they would be shifting a portion of their business to that venture.
Well, that's part of it. It's a sewer company, so
I understand.
So that's right. And then I also had a question on the documentation, and we've already passed tap and bind. If I remember, and somebody can correct me, in their request from Claire, she asked for more documentation from tap and bind. She asked, and they submitted, if I remember, John's here, but I think they submitted the quote for the patio after December 9th. Craig, you're nodding yes, so you think so too. So my thing is, I know we're looking at documentation, but here we go again. We have one applicant who I passed, and we all passed, got their grant, and we said, because they had good documentation. And they were given a second chance for that documentation. Was this applicant given that opportunity to get us the quote? Because some of us sound like we're hitting them for not having certain documentation. That's all I'm saying. I just want to treat everybody as apples to apples.
So
okay, you all set?
Yeah, those are
Okay.
those are good.
it doesn't appear that the emails that went out from the consultant are part of the record and part of what's in SureLink. It's their emails
They
that
are.
have
Not a,
back.
some of them I did see
Okay.
as like a cover sheet to whatever was submitted, and the one that I bring to your attention that I expressly remember is the YMCA.
Okay.
You'll see that supplementary packet has the email, the response email from Sean Doherty is saying, you know, Claire, based upon your request, please see the attached. So,
And I think to Mike Radinsky's, he's emailed us a sheet back, I think on February 9th or something it was, or somewhere around there, and it showed you each applicant, and some of the applicants, they didn't submit everything and they closed the file. This particular applicant, tap and bind, I remember looking at it today, and that one, and I didn't go looking for this one, that one had said that Claire had sent, if I remember correctly, because they all get confusing, she had sent out an email to them, and 2 days, and if I remember correctly, 2 days later, they sent back the quote. I think it was like February 5th to February 7th.
Are you ready to score? Because I think
But
we're
I'm
off
just
point. I think
no,
we're way
I'm
off point. I
You're
really
off
do.
point because it's
Yeah.
just everybody should be treated fairly.
Every applicant, let me just finish. Every application has a procedural history to it. Does it affect the scoring? You know, second email out. I mean, I don't know. If it does affect your scoring, then score it accordingly.
Well,
but I
I
don't
mean-
see it fitting in to
Right, I'm
the
just saying.
criteria.
and I just want to say to Rob's credit, I did, when I got to box number 1, I did put no in that box.
Okay, we'll make sure we count that. The
Based
no's and
upon
yes.
the numbers
Yeah.
that I saw, I could not see an effect as being addressed.
Well, and that's to your point. We don't know what they did in the first 3 months of that year either.
No, we don't, and nothing
That's
will
the-
application. Bottom line is, the rules were that the applicants submit their application by December 9th. Understand, in all of our discussions and with some of these business owners, they've never done this before. So they handed an application with what they think is a complete application by December the 9th. They've completed the requirements. The consultants look at that, wanting to make sure that they're given the benefit of the doubt, hey, add some extra paperwork. So the fact that they hand some paperwork in after December the 9th, supporting documentation based on a consultant asking them to do so, I don't hold that against them at all.
Part of the,
Well, I'm not
I personally think we're way off track. Part of the consultant's job is to look at the application and for a limited period of time, try to collect documentation that was not filed initially. It's part of their job. And so you're looking at the history of that. I don't know why that's particularly important, but it is to you, so score it that way.
The way it's sticking in my head is February 5th, that was sent out. February 7th is when we got it.
Then flunk them. I mean,
No, I'm passing. That was cap and bond.
Amy, you ready to go?
You ready? Okay.
Yeah.
Jesse Reynolds, 70. Carl Bonamico, 80. Rob Fritz, 70. Jackie 80. Chris Regan, 78. Mike Bransky, 79.
Mine's gonna jump off the
Chris
page.
Ryan, 30. Bob Gross, 75. Amy Walsh, 70.
It's eerily familiar.
Don't you get up to about 50, you start making all over down.
Couldn't you done 43?
70.22.
Wow. So based
Democracy.
on the average score, I make a motion that we recommend further favorable action in the matter of Clear Solutions Sewer and Drain in the amount of $24,000.
Second.
Carl Bonamico.
Yes.
Mike Kredinsky, yes. Craig Fishbein.
Yes.
Rob Fritz.
Yes.
Mike Glidden, absent. Bob Gross.
Yes.
Jacqueline McNamee.
Yes.
Chris Regan.
Yes.
Jesse Reynolds.
Yes.
Amy Walsh.
Yes.
I've had it.
So soon.
No, I'm gonna go grab. I'm too paranoid to leave my phone sitting out in the open on my car seat. I don't have to get it.
Especially given the notice from the cops today.
Oh, what was that?
Oh, cars getting stolen.
Oh no.
Down here?
Like a lot.
I have to run to my car. I'll be right back.
Yeah.
What's the next one?
Taking anything good?
John Ross.
The
Next
car.
one is,
In a good car.
Car stolen in Washington Street, over there by North Plains.
the next one is
Friday.
I Envision. I have that down.
Two cars, catalytic converted right in front of Bank of America.
I could not identify the incompleteness.
Yeah.
No tax return.
They just
Oh.
There's a P&L.
No, there wasn't tax returns, but there was P&L, which I thought was
Yep.
would suffice.
P&Ls
No,
for
we
not-for-profit.
decided the opposite.
Oh,
P&Ls for not-for-profit.
I wasn't here that
P&Ls are
night.
not for profit.
Okay.
Yeah. But does anyone see any tax returns?
I thought P&Ls were for businesses as well.
No.
No.
Therefore, based on the policy that we adopted after lengthy discussion,
Glad I missed that one.
I think you were there. I make a motion that we recommend no further favorable action due to the fact that the application is incomplete, parenthesis, no tax returns, or auditor issued profit and loss.
Second.
Carl Bonamico.
Yes.
Mike Berdinsky, yes. Craig Fishbein.
Yeah.
Rob Fritz.
Yes.
Mike Glidden, absent. Bob Gross.
Yes.
Jacqueline McNamee.
Yes.
Chris Regan.
Yes.
Jesse Reynolds.
He went to school.
Absent temporarily. Amy Walsh.
Yes.
Okay.
So we don't have a folder for those guys? So would that confuse you?
Put
or
a,
do you want me to-
put a folder in there and sit and put a note, whatever you want, date it and just say incomplete and we'll go from there.
You want to cover the application for the minute?
No. They're on applications.
Jesse,
yes.
What's that?
you're next up on John Roz. Are you ready to go?
Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry about that. So while I'm doing that, I can say that when we originally were supposed to meet and review this one, I was excited to talk about it because similar to the other one that we did for the folks that provided costumes and rentals for prom and stuff. This is another one of those businesses that really got clobbered from the pandemic, and it's one of those businesses that's been around town for a long time. And what he was ultimately able to do to kind of make his way during a pretty weird time that we were all going through is pretty remarkable. Does a lot for the town. The application was really good. Tons and tons of supporting documentation. Sorry, I'm out of breath because I ran down the street and back. Yeah, I scored this one high. I think that again, what this person's business is meant to the town is pretty important, and in the spirit of what this is about, I think that this would help him and allow his business to. It would not be a temporary fix. It would not be a short-term solution to anything. So I gave it a high pass.
Amy?
Yes, likewise, give it a high pass. Like the documentation provided and all of the detail. So.
Bob Gross.
Yeah, this is the classic type of applicant, really impact, no matter what, this kind of business was impacted by COVID dramatically.
Mm-hmm.
Craig?
So we obviously saw the drop in income. I tried to deal with this application in as objectively as possible, but I will admit that when Robin Williams died, a piece of my heart died, and when I saw that down there, I said, I can't, gotta grade it based on its application. The fact that it's handwritten and somebody spent so much time on this, and there's so much backup, I don't know how you couldn't approve, so I did pass it.
The numbers tell a story here. 2019, they had a tidy little profit and somewhat of a handsome gross sales, and then you move into 2020 and the bottom seems to fall out, and a tidy little profit turns into a deficit. In 2021, they clawed back a little, but barely. So I think the numbers reveal really what I need to know on if they're impacted, to what degree, so on and so forth. Obviously, their documentation is really good, and they scored accordingly. So, Carl?
Very thorough application. As Craig said, just covered all the points emblematic of a small business in that industry, very much negatively impacted. Had a very favorable score for me.
Jackie?
I agree with what everybody else has said already.
Even the Robin Williams quote.
Rob?
It did for me too. It was a very good application. I scored it pretty high.
Chris?
Same for me. Okay.
Me.
Alright, Carl Bonico, 92. Jackie McNamee, 90. Rob Fritz, 90. Chris Regan, 90. Mike Berdinsky, 92. Jesse Reynolds, 90. Rick Fishbein, 75. Bob Gross, 80. Amy Walsh, 97.
So based on the average score, I move that we recommend further favorable action in the amount of $25,000 in the matter of John Ra's Sound Spectrum.
Second.
Carl Bonamico.
Yes.
Mike Berdinsky, yes. Craig Fishbein.
Yes.
Rob Fritz.
Yes.
Mike Glidden, absent. Bob Gross.
Yes.
Jacqueline McNamee.
Yes.
Chris Regan.
Yes.
Jesse Reynolds.
Yes.
Amy Walsh.
Yes.
ZR Coop Amy Walsh again.
So, this one was on the agenda before, and we're bringing it back because we didn't get to it. So ZR Group Services LLC is a painting and restoration services contractor operating mainly in retirement and nursing home and medical facilities. So in their application, they explained that they were unable to work in their client facilities that they often work in. Their project proposes to construct a dry storage room on site for materials. Detailed costs were not spelled out, and an actual ask was not included in the application. They gave a range, I believe, and didn't give details. So, looking at, I don't know how we're going to handle that.
What do we do with the fact that we only have a tax return for 2019?
We're going to discuss that.
Yeah. So yeah, there's only there was 20. It was a 2019 tax return and 2021 tax return.
Which we were all for.
Yeah, we have a
All three.
1920.
We're all confused. Okay, I'm sorry.
Are there?
I have three, yeah.
I'm looking at 19, 20, 21.
Yeah, we got them.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
I had 3 columns, so how could that be?
So yeah, my notes here. The tax return showed decrease in revenue of 7% from 2019 to 2021. So yeah, the tracker doc indicated that they were applying for 25,000, but there wasn't indicated in their application. So we could choose to say, well, you know, they're looking at a project for 30 to 35,000, and they said they do have funds to make up the difference. So we could assume that they're looking for 25,000. Not sure how we want to handle that. There wasn't documentation provided, just the ballpark estimate, and it does say that they're shovel ready. So I did not give this a high score because they didn't detail financial adversity in their tax returns. Didn't show a big financial adversity. Yeah, and so that's my thoughts.
Okay, while we're on it, to be efficient about it, if it was limited to $25,000, because they didn't put in the amount requested, assuming on your window you pass them, but 25,000 would suit you as a motion? We gotta have a
Yes,
amount.
yes,
It would, assuming it's passed, I mean, you know, I wanna make
yeah.
that. Okay, Bob Gross?
Yeah, the business didn't really suffer that much, it appears. I don't know, this one's just right on the cusp for me.
Okay, Craig?
So I have to throw the flag on the tax return thing, because I'm looking in here, there are no tax returns on behalf of ZR Cool. There are documents here under the name of Jason Michael. I got what appears to be a Schedule C from a tax return. I have, that's one page, then I have page 2 of that. That's from 2019. I've got a Schedule C from 2020, and I have a Schedule C from 2021. So there are no, I mean, this would be a portion of a tax return. I do not believe that, not being part, I mean, it's not a tax return. So, you know, that combined with the application, so I made note, well, no amount sought. It seems like it's, you know, there's money available, you know, give us money and we'll figure it out, because the application appears to be for a climate-controlled facility for a home improvement contractor that doesn't improve homes, because they say that they do most of their work in nursing homes. which would be commercial activity. Home improvement contractors do work in residential properties. So I got a bunch of puzzle pieces, but I can't get any of them to link up. I will admit that I scored it higher than the other one before, but not much.
36?
40. But anyway, that's where I'm at.
I'm looking at the tax returns.
The documents, or
I'm looking at
the portions of tax returns?
I'm looking at the tax returns, and I will characterize it my way, not your way. So I'm looking at the tax returns.
Okay.
See, you can look over my shoulder. I'm looking at the tax returns, 2019, 20, and 21. I see a nice, tidy little profit in 2019. There's more than that in 2020, and in 2021 they're below pre-pandemic. So the question that I was curious about is why in 2020 did it go up? I'm never going to be able to solve that to my satisfaction as to why that happened. But I did notice a couple of things. That the wage in 2020, the expense for wages were down by about $40,000, and the insurance cost was down by about $8,000, which would increase the net, even though the gross was down, if expenses go down. The wages going down are consistent with less work out there. They don't have to hire as many people. So there's an inference. It's not the greatest, but there is enough there for me to give them a passing grade. That's probably barely so because of the documentation issue and some of the issues that Craig raises. And you never know why a business makes money one year and doesn't make money another year. It isn't necessarily because of COVID. It could be because of a lot of things that happen. So as in every case, if I have doubt or uncertainty, they don't get a higher score. When things are pretty clear, just from common sense and the tax returns and the application, if things are clear, then I give them a much higher score because they're clear to me. This is sort of in the gray area, and I gave it a passing grade, but not a strong one. Carl.
I think we're generally in agreement, Mike, you and I.
What?
Yeah, we're getting better. In the Schedule C, that is a tax return. The majority of the integrity of the tax return on Schedule C is usually found in the first 2 pages. It is not a complete tax return, and I agree with that. Should it be a complete tax return? Absolutely. But you have the robust of the Schedule C, the robust section of the Schedule C is usually found in the first 2 pages. Someone said they didn't suffer enough. They suffered nonetheless. I thought the application was well written, but it wasn't overly powerful case for me. I gave it barely a passing score.
Jackie?
I gave it a passing score, but also a low passing score. I was looking at, the loss that they had showed, and also that they went from 8 employees to 6, so maybe that's how they came back a little bit too. But again, I'm not sure how their project is going to make their business continue to grow, but I gave it a low passing score.
Rob?
My sentiment echoes everything that people have already suggested. I don't have an issue with the tax returns. I would have appreciated a little bit more detail. I know that the construction is maybe a little bit nebulous, but it would have been nice to at least maybe break it down a little bit to what they're going to spend the money on. It just seems to be a kind of a vision right now. So I gave it a passing score on the low side. And I have to admit that, these folks also handed in the other application, and I have to think that both of those companies are going to probably be consolidated into one building. So sometimes I get a little bit leery if you can form 6 companies and put in 6 applications, even though technically they're all under one umbrella. That was in the back of my mind. I know we're supposed to treat these separately, but that was still in the back of my mind. So I gave it a passing score, but again, a little on the low side.
Chris?
So for me, too many gray areas, too many unknowns, too much uncertainty as to the path forward. They have a respectable business. They have a good amount of revenue. I gave it a fail, but just barely.
Jesse?
Yeah, I kind of struggled with this one a little bit because the other application was a little bit clearer to me. This one, not as much. I'm a very low pass.
Amy, you started, right?
Yeah, I started.
Okay, around the table again, Amy, anything else? Don't want to rush you, because
No.
Bob's got his hands up and he tends to rush me on.
No, I'm just telling you about something else.
Easy.
I know you
Amy's
are.
good, you're next.
Good.
Okay, the only thing I want to say on this is 19, the numbers were a certain way, and 20, they were a little higher. It's a cash business, so that's how they're doing on their taxes. So whether they did business in 19 and then got paid in 20, that can affect some of the 20 numbers. And then there's past money that might have been owed to them because there was a lot of cash floating around, and that's what might have affected 21 going down, because they didn't have anything on the books, because they weren't doing much business at the end of 20 because of COVID, and that's why their numbers went down to 21. I'm just saying, we have to look at the whole picture, or potential the whole picture. I know it's not changing anybody's score, but I just want to say
good
that,
point.
because
Yeah,
it's a cash
it's
business
thoughtful.
versus a curl business.
Thoughtful comment.
I just want to say that, at the end of the day, there has to be some sort of, here and as well as the council, we've talked about being able to link up what we are approving through this month. I don't know what we would be approving through this, in this particular application. How can whomever is going to attest that they use the money as we set up the confines? How would Janice put together a contract for them to sign other than to have this nebulous language? So adherence.
That's an important point, and I'll just give you my understanding of it. She's going to take the application and she's going to put together a contract. If she has trouble doing that and can't do it, and the promises are too vague, it may fail at that level. I can't.
Well, I think
For
it's
sure foresee that, but she'll take the application, and if it can be cast in some kind of text and say you are promising to accomplish these items or these things, they're going to have to sign that and then prove they did it and spent the money in that way. If that cannot be done, and the applicant says, "Oh no, then they never come to the contract and it fails.
I just think it's incumbent upon us, at least based upon the confines of our charge, to make a recommendation to the next step to approve, and that within that recommendation, we should have some assurances that it doesn't possibly fail at that step. Because if it does, then we didn't do our job. That's all. Okay. I'm not saying what Janice would do, but I think that's an important portion of what we're doing.
Okay. Around the table again, Carl?
Yes.
No, I mean for comment. Second by.
Second bite of the apple?
Second
No.
bite. No second bite. Okay. Jackie?
I'm all set.
Rob? Chris? Jesse? Amy? Okay. Score time.
Can I say something? That's why I think some of the stores, if they're showing a material item being purchased, and I think that to me weighs a little higher, because we can see tangible, we can guide that tangibly. If they want to buy a widget and they want to buy 2 widgets and a picture, we know that that's going to help it. If they start with some esoteric type of things that are said, well, we're gonna add half an employee or something, that's tougher for us.
So I go back to the
Great point.
karate application.
If there's not specific lists, how does the controller
Right. But
know when you guys hand in well? There's no specific, he has no reference point. So to Craig's point, that's a very valid point.
I go back to the karate application we had the very first night. They had the list, they had the numbers, and then Janice can say, okay, did you buy this? Did you,
Here's
that
the
kind of
invoice.
stuff. Yeah.
that's the thing, where they show they're gonna hire a half an employee or something like that, or something. It's tougher. It's tougher to show.
They had 3 months to fill the application out.
Most did. Some only had 2 weeks.
2 weeks to fill out an application of 25,000. Probably even to scribble some notes.
No, that was for the not-for-profits, that's 2 weeks. The not-for-profits had 2 weeks only. Some of the not-for-profits. council changed.
But the business is that.
All right.
Business is that all the time.
We done with
I'm not saying
the
the business
kitchen,
is-
can we move on?
We want to score it.
Ready? All right, Mike Brinsky, 79. Rob Fritz, 70. Jackie McNamee, 75. Carl Bomico, 71. Chris Regan, 65. Amy Walsh, 32. Bob Gross, 70. Fishbein, 40.
Thank you, Amy.
Jesse Reynolds, 70.
So based on the average score, I make a motion that we recommend no further favorable action in the matter of ZR Coop Services LLC. Seconded by Chris Carl.
Yes.
Mike Burdinsky, yes. Craig?
Yes.
Rob?
Yes.
Mike Liddon, absent. Bob Gross?
Yes.
Jacqueline McNamee?
Yes.
Chris Regan?
Yes.
Jesse Reynolds?
Yes.
Amy Walsh?
Yes.
Craig, you want to remove yourself?
Sure.
Oh.
Gladly.
Freezing in 2 seconds.
Way it works.
Sorry.
Vogue is,
That's me.
Jack, yes.
So Vogue Hair Salon, they've been in business for 18 years. Nail salon. So we all know they were severely impacted during COVID. It shows in their 2019, 20, and 21 tax returns. They did receive PPP loan and then EIDL loan. My only concern with this one is that, well, they're using it for recovery, but it was my understanding that it couldn't go back for pay for rent utilities. So, I want to score it high because we all know that they went through significant loss, but what they're saying they're going to use it for. I'm just wondering how to score it.
Okay. Rob?
Yeah, I thought that Jackie made some valid points, but I tried to look at it in a general way, and I thought that they were impacted. I think she's trying to grow her business and recover from that. The money's going to long-term, sustainable improvements in the business, so I gave it a reasonably good passing score.
Chris?
I guess the use of funds, for me, the proposed budget is appropriate, would probably be a no. But the rest of the application would score, pretty good, in my estimation. And I don't know that that's a knockout factor. That's what I'm struggling with internally.
Jesse?
Am I the only one that had 2018, 2019, and 2020?
The fiscal year
It's July.
overlaps. It's not a
Oh,
calendar
okay,
year.
okay,
so
okay. All right,
you-
sorry.
Yeah.
Very good. Then that makes sense to me. Okay. I figured as such, and I saw the dating on it, but it just kind of threw me for a loop because of the. This is obviously one of those businesses that was impacted. Obviously, they took a dip and haven't come back to pre-pandemic based on the financials. I did have the same questions. I actually went and tried to look up whether it was the appropriate use of the money for what they list in here, but otherwise, the other things are all accounted for in there. So it's brief, but it's not to a detriment. So I kind of don't know on this one.
Amy?
Yeah, I have a hard time with I don't doubt that they suffered a loss, and their documents do show that, but the use of funds, I have a hard time with the use of funds. Partly because growing the business, once you run out of this money, if you're paying employee wages with it, then what happens? If you're paying operating costs, wages, rent, and utilities, then what happens? And I thought we weren't supposed to pay debt with this money, so I have to have it.
Bob Gross.
Yeah, I'm right on the cusp with this one also, same thing with the debt. The fiscal years, because of the way they fall, they didn't have we don't get to see a full year post-pandemic. We get to see a split year post-pandemic, so that might explain some of their not in 2021, why their rise, because it's 20 through 21. But I'm just gonna, right on the cusp of passing it.
I didn't have any problem with it. I gave this a fail. I didn't see a project here at all. This is, I think, a classic example of a temporary fix. They put in there they're going to pay down debt that is specifically not permitted. Their numbers, you know, they are showing a loss in that fiscal year ending July 31, 2021. In 2019, they didn't make a lot of money, but combined with their use of the money, which is one of the weaker uses I've seen, the debt, everything else, this is a fail. Carl.
Definitely, I recognize the loss. It's there. The use of money is questionable. I understand that. It's to me, this is the kind of business that has suffered during the pandemic. See a lot of this in these industries. So to me, it's barely a pass for me. I was struggling with this one, but it's a barely low pass for me.
Okay. Jackie, you started.
I did.
You did. Any second bites? Any second bites? No. Okay, let's pass it on.
Let's do Lascara next. Give her a chance to come back. If not, we keep going. 4, 5. Oh,
Salon Moray
left.
She said she was on the fence to me whether she was coming back or not, and I told her you could.
I can go. Or do you want to do
No,
Lascara and give her
we'll
a
do
couple
it. She left kind of in her. We'll keep it in order.
Okay.
So wait,
But
you
hold
were
on, we got to
Salon
get the
Moray
average
or
score
rest?
and the motion.
There's 7 then. Because Craig's not there.
Okay, Chris Regan 65, Jackie 75, Rob Fritz 80, Carl Wamico 73, Amy Walsh 40, Mike Berdinsky 58, Jesse Reynolds 60, Bob Gross 70.
The divisor's 8.
65.13.
65.13, so based on the average score, I make a motion that we recommend no further favorable action in the matter of Vogue Nail Salon LLC.
Second.
Carl, a yes or no?
Yes.
Mike Berdinsky, yes. Craig, recused. Rob Fritz?
Yes.
Mike Glidden, absent. Bob Gross?
Yes.
Jacqueline McNamee?
Yes.
Chris Regan?
Yes.
Jesse Reynolds?
Yes.
Amy Walsh?
Yes.
Motion carries. Salon Lorray is next up. Give me just 1 second. Okay, Chris, is that yours?
Yep.
Yes, it is.
So this one I'm gonna kind of go about it a little bit different than we've done the rest of them. Just what it is what it is, I guess. I'm struggling with this with the amount of money that's being asked for, correlating that to the categories, while well documented, at least what they want to spend the money on. You know, I have issues and I have problems with it. I've got an issue with the $2,000 being allocated for use of
fundraisers, better fundraisers and betterment of the town for the Sisters Project, etc. All for that, but that's not how the money flows in these types of things. You've got an organization that was forced to move due to landlord issues, etc. And they're currently in a rental property, but they're having a problem with the hot water heater. Who owns that hot water heater? Is that the landlord's responsibility? Is it an excessive use problem? Should there be augmenting and everything else? I'd almost give them that. But when you take a look at things like a 3-year education plan, when this is supposed to be done in 12 months, the products, tools, and equipment side of it, I have no problem with it. It's now taking a look at a business and then the raise for receptionists and the $2,000 savings account for incentives. Well, it's not a rainy day fund in my estimation. So you look at a business that was clearly impacted by COVID. You take a look at the financials. They've come back, at least in 2021, double in the top line revenue, and they, pulled a $67,000 profit, 64 in 2021 against the -3 in 2020. So they've turned that business around. They're an important staple in the community. They hire and they have a full-time employee list that is well needed in the town. I think I would pass this one only barely with half of the funding. Is where I'm at right now.
Jesse.
Yeah, this one, I share similar concerns about who owns the water here, and since that's like $12,000 of the $25,000 ask, I'm not sure if they would be responsible for that. If they were to move, would they take it with them? I don't know if I'm being a little sarcastic. Sorry, it was 3,000 for the water heater, sorry, not 12.
Right.
3,000. My apologies. 3,000 for the water heater strike. But even still, there was the same thing with the education over a 3-year period. It's supposed to be something that would be done within 12 months. So it would be hard to see a return on that. Yeah, I wouldn't pass this for the full amount, but I would consider passing it for a less amount.
Thank you to my people who went before me for detailing lots of things. I have a hard time with the use of funds here. The water heater was one thing that, maybe, but because they lease, exactly who owns the water heater. And it was hard to tell whether it would be implemented right away. So my biggest hurdles are the use of funds and how quickly it would be implemented.
Bob?
Yeah, I had a problem with, again, use of funds. I do have to compliment her though. She did move. Her employment has gone up. If you look in 2021, her wages now are $271,000. So she's really almost really increasing the number of employees or revenue she's bringing in. Which congratulations, she did a really good job for that. But if she didn't have, again, this goes back to my thing before, if she had things in her application that were tangible, maybe it would get a passing score for me, but it's tough with this one.
Craig.
So it appears based upon the financials that there is recovery. So that's hard to deal with. As with other applications, at least in my cynical view tonight, it appears like somebody said to the business owner, if you were to ask government for $25,000, where would you spend it? Because it's like throwing things at a dartboard. I agree with everything that was said previously, but I'm looking at this list, the 10,000, 5, 5, 3, and 2, and I don't agree with the fundraiser thing. I don't agree with the hot water thing. Purchase of necessary products and tools needed within the beauty industry. I have no idea what that is. It's like $5 grand. I can throw it. Education for my staff over the next 3 years. I mean, as Chris points out, that doesn't fit. And then raises for my receptionists and incentives for my stylists. It's being as respectful as I can. It's nothing. It's a recovered business that's just looking to get $25,000 from government, and I scored it accordingly.
The first line, the first row has to talk, we have to score the degree of the financial adversity that the business is currently experiencing with the serious bounce back from pre-COVID to 2021. I don't see any current adversity. She's doing well. I appreciate all the other comments you made, but that sort of is my bottom line on that. Carl?
Definitely a steep decline for 20, no doubt about that. She's been recovering well, as Bob pointed out. Great strategy on her part, but lacks a lot of substance, a lot of details and specifics on this one that I can't, as Craig likes to say, and others have pointed out, lack of correlation. This received a failing grade for me.
Jackie?
I gave it a low pass. Again, it was difficult to score knowing that, the hair salons did struggle a lot, but again, with what she's using the funds for, I do have some questions.
Rob?
I did what everybody else said already, but I have a little less of an issue with things like the hot water heater. I mean, the bottom line is, again, I go back to what would she have purchased all these? Would she have implemented these had she not taken a hit from COVID? So I think it probably would have been yes. So I think that she's just investing in the business as she would have if she had the funds earlier. I know she's recovered. I don't want to hold that against her. So I gave it a passing grade, a modest passing grade.
Second bites? Hearing no second bites. Pass it in. Okay, sign them. Score them.
So just from a procedure standpoint, Mike, if this were to pass, how would we factor in the reduced amount of funds pre-passing the application or prior? I know we've talked about it before, but
Are you adding?
We're ready to.
Ready to go. Put in the average. We'll talk.
Okay,
We'll talk
ready?
again. Let's wrap that.
Chris Regan 60, Rob Fritz 80, Jackie 75, Carl Bonamico 65, Mike Berdinsky 59, Amy Walsh 50, Jesse Reynolds 60, Fishbein 45, Gross 50.
The asks were just
60.44.
Let's wrap this up and I'll address your.
I didn't hold it against her.
Well,
in the future,
business.
we can cover it later.
It's the asks she did.
Let's wrap this up with a no, and then we'll address your. So based on the average score, I make a motion that no further favorable action be taken in the case, in the matter of Salon Lorraine.
Second?
Carl Bonamico?
Yes.
Mike Berdinsky, yes. Craig Fishbein?
Yes.
Rob Fritz?
Yes.
Mike Glidden, absent. Bob Gross?
Yes.
Jacqueline
Yes.
McNamee, Chris Regan?
Yes.
Jesse Reynolds?
Yes.
Amy Walsh?
Yes.
So if there is an application where a request is severable, a piece of the request is severable from the other piece, like a water heater, for example, and you want to sever that out because you think it might increase the scoring, when we go around the table, and we'll go around twice or as many times as we need to, point out what you want to sever, and as a professional courtesy, everyone thereafter indicate your reaction to the idea of severing out, in this example, the $3,000. So let's say you're the first to mention, I don't like the 3,000, I want to sever that out, and that would give it a better score. You would say that. Ideally, Jesse, going next, would say, good idea, I'm with you. And so on, and then I get a sense of whether or not there's enough support for that to take a vote on it, and then that would be severed, and the application would be reduced from 25 to 22, practically speaking. Although, if there's another piece that you want severed out, or someone else wants severed out, not only the water heater, but I don't want this donation to another nonprofit, so I also want to take out 5,000. That should be mentioned when we go around the table and see if there's support. And we'll go around as many times as we need to ferret out whether there's enough support for a motion. And if it appears to be, and if it's close, we'll have a vote. If it just appears that it's just you, then then we won't. But it'll work out. And there have been a couple of applications that way. So don't be bashful if there's. So don't be bashful. If you want to sever something out, say so. But on the other hand, once it's severed out, if you're going to vote no anyway, then say so. Because let's not take the time in severing something out and then you wouldn't vote for it anyway. If you would vote for it, if the 3,000 is taken out, now you would change your vote, then it's worth the effort.
Well, that's why when I was reviewing that list, if there were, let's say they had set aside money to buy a new barber chair, and they had to use that to buy cleaning supplies, right? I would have been in favor of, buying the barber chair for them, right? But I couldn't identify something that I could pull out of that application that I was comfortable with.
The last one is Lascara. I have that down as incomplete.
Yeah, it's P&Ls.
Yeah. Unless someone saw tax returns.
No, I just checked again.
They're not there. Yeah,
P&Ls, they're not technical.
Okay. So, based on that, I make a motion that we recommend no further favorable action due to the fact that the application is incomplete. Parenthesis, no tax returns or CPA audited P&Ls. Okay. Carl?
Yes.
Mike Rudinsky, yes. Craig Fishbein?
Yes.
Rob Fritz?
Yes.
Mike Glidden absent. Bob Gross?
Yes.
Jacqueline McNamee?
Yes.
Chris Regan?
Yes.
Jesse Reynolds?
Yes.
Amy Walsh?
Yes.
All right, boys and girls, let's have some fun now.
We should talk about it?
I don't think we should.
Yeah.
Can I make a motion? I make a motion that until the council decides what to do with the not-for-profits, we don't grade any not-for-profits until then. We have plenty of business applications to go through.
All right, I'm going to second that for discussion. We'll have a broad discussion. We're going to have a wide-ranging discussion. So,
Remember, we're agreeing.
Cheryl Ann, keep track of that motion because I may say, what did Bob say? Because this could be 45 minutes from now.
We hope so.
We don't have five. I made a motion that we
That
don't
was
review any more.
That 40, I think you, hopefully in that 45.
So,
Well, but not-for-profits.
hey, heads up, if you would. There's a couple of things that we got to get some facts out and share some ideas and things like that. And that motion can come in under procedural matters and that item on the agenda. But also on the amended agenda, we have Vinnie Testa's report. I want to blend those two because they are similar. They raise similar issues. You got from me a while ago, not that long ago, a copy of a memo Vinnie Testa sent to me asking for a report regarding our rationale on those matters we did not recommend. Remember that? Okay. I had a talk with Vinnie Testa as soon as I got it. What's up? This is not a word for word. This is not a verbatim. This is a sense of the conversation. I explained there is no one official rationale. There's 10 people scoring. They all have their own ideas, their own choice of words, their own emphasis, their own way of expressing themselves. There is no one official agreed upon reason. Question to Councilor Testa: do you want 10 summaries of everybody? Maybe with certain non-commitment, maybe, you know. He said, Mike, you have time. You have time to do this. You know, wait a couple weeks. You can get it to me. I said, to what end you want these reports? He said, in case we want to overrule you. So, okay, I'm taking it under advisement. Not said, I'm saying now, if anyone wants to listen to the audio or report back to the counselor. So the request is asking us to be the instrument of our own demise. The request is write a report so they can pick it apart, find a flaw, and use our report or a report as a reason to kind of make jerks of us. Any volunteers for that report? Because I ain't doing it. It was one counselor who wanted it. Our rationales are in Cheryl Land's minutes. You can watch, you know, listen to the audio. You can attend a meeting. You can do whatever you want to do. But to have some sort of a report for this particular use, I throw it out. That's why it's on the agenda. It's an open discussion. You know, I led with what I thought. I'm certainly not going to assign that to somebody. I'm not going to be doing that. I've got enough on my plate. But even so, to me, it's not in the best interests of this committee to try to do its work without political interference or political bullying. Because that's how I see this. And I'm not going to do anything to enable that. Nevertheless, if the committee wants to write a report or a volunteer wants to step forward, we can talk about it. I'm raising Vinnie Testa's request now because it's part and parcel of what's going on with respect to Bob Gross's motion, sort of a general attitude developing at the council more in this in about 5 minutes as to what to do with the committee. What to do with the committee when they say no to an application, particularly nonprofits. Let's first, Bob, if you just bear with me on it, let's first
I think we keep it to a minimum.
Address this Vinnie Testa memo. It brings in collateral issues. Let's talk about it. I mean, absolutely talk about it. But I want to kind of narrow the issue so we can go from one step to another, because there's a lot more coming, as Bob Gross, indicated. There's a lot more background that I will share with you when we get around to Jason Zander. We will get to that. But this is kind of an existential moment, with respect to the committee. So I want to be deliberate. Yeah, Jesse.
I think the fact that we all turn in scoring sheets, that we turn in the tape that scores with the name of the applicant on it, and that all of our conversations are being tape recorded and then summarized in minutes, which then get posted on the website. I think that's the report. Like, if anyone wants to know why, including an applicant, as to why their application was not scored, they can go back and they can actually hear us discuss it, and they can actually ask for the information that shows each one of our scores. So I don't really see there to be a need to then do a report of that, because I think all of us take our time to go through everything before we come here. All of us take our time to be here. And all of us are taking our time prospectively to finish this. And so I don't think that we should have to stop and summarize the ones that we didn't approve, Because why aren't we then summarizing the ones that we did approve? Because what if they don't agree with the ones that we did approve? What if someone comes up there and says, hey, mine didn't get funded, but theirs got funded, and mine's no different than theirs. I want theirs taken away. You don't have to give me mine to take away theirs. What's to stop that discussion from starting to happen? I think everything that we've done so far has been respectful of the applicants, respectful of the process, respectful of the criteria that we were given to score these things with, and we've all had respectful discussions. And we've all been appointed by the people who are now asking us to summarize what it is that we're doing, given the fact that they asked us to do this for them. I don't think it's a fair ask. I think it steps over a boundary.
We're going to go around because I think probably everyone wants to weigh in, so we'll just go around so we're not.
And I should, full disclosure, I was appointed by
Then it's your
Counselor
responsibility.
Testa.
And it's your responsibility.
No.
Hold on.
Yeah.
Amy?
Yeah.
So, you finished?
Yeah.
Okay. I agree with what Jesse said, that there is enough reporting of what we're doing, and we have our score sheets, and we've kept good records of what we do. My one thought of this when I first heard about this was, the council is not clear on our procedure. They gave us these scoring sheets, we chose to run our meetings, we made some decisions here internally as how we're gonna run things. And now we're churning through, and there are yeses and there are nos, and people are hearing about disappointed people. So I'm wondering if it would make sense to do a presentation to the council about our procedure, to educate them. You guys, you gave us these score sheets, this is how we're using them, this is what we're doing, we're using the data provided by UHY. It's averaged, it's not any one person swaying. Because there's 10 of us here, we're all able to give an opinion, and and we have a high score average that we threshold that we agree on as far as what we approve and what we don't approve. So we all know how that works, but the council doesn't know. So maybe their trepidation of what they have some knowledge about why we say no and what the criteria are that we say no and how our procedure goes. So I think we should make a presentation.
And we're going to come back to that in depth. So, but be patient in rules.
Yep.
Bob?
I think everything stays status quo. I think if they wanted the opportunity, they make the sheets, they have the opportunity to be here at a meeting, listen to a meeting, how we score, how we came up with the criteria. I remember them on the council wanted 10. It's a super majority that has to vote on something. It was their decisions on who they placed on the panel. They put faith in the people that are in this room. And I think the faith should stay with us in this room, and I don't think we have to go back and redo what they appointed us to do.
Craig, any thoughts? You're next in line. What can I do? I'm not going to skip over.
It's ironic that we're having this discussion tonight, because at the last meeting that we had in 315, before the meeting started, I was going to commend Mike for all the hard work that he's done. Just a yeoman's amount of work over and above.
Get to the point.
Well, and I was also thinking about, this group coming together. I know most of you. I've never met Chris before. I've never had the opportunity to work with Jesse, Amy, you and I have never, I've known him for years, right? And I was thinking, what a great homogenous group. We all come together with the ultimate intent of doing good for the town, and we all come from different places. And, at some point in the middle of March, somebody's going to bring brownies, and it's a good get together. And I'm offended. I'm offended by the item that appeared on last night's council agenda, because it opens up the door to totally challenge not only the nonprofits, but any application. And if we're going to end up with, I self-appointed myself, and I took some heat for that. I'm a control freak. I got it. But I want to be part of this process. And everybody else in the council could have done that too. But if at the end of the day, the many nights that we spend here, the nights that we spend at our home, away from our families, reviewing this stuff, if at the end of the day, it's all thrown out the window by politics and personal relationships on the council, why are we here? I mean, I gotta say, if we're at the point that the nonprofit applications are reviewable and all the hard work that we've done throw out the window, then the business applications fall in the same boat. We denied at least one business application the very first night that we came here. And you didn't hear anybody coming to the council about that one because they weren't politically connected. And you're going to see that what happened on the council agenda last night was all about politics. And that besmirches our activities. So I think we got to know from the council, are our recommendations that have some validity, or is it all for naught? So with regard to the tester report, which is the issue on the table right now, no, listen to the recording. We're not going to do your work for you. I defer.
Craig opened the door to the wider discussion, which really follows Bob Gross's motion, and I haven't shared with you everything that I need to share to get to all of it. And so I'm wondering if I should do that now, and maybe I will, because it sort of fits together as to what's going on. So Carl, if you just bear with me, and then you'll pick up after that. One of the commendable ideals of forming a committee to decide these applications, ideal is the word I used. I always knew this was going to be a tough slog. Always knew, wasn't under any illusions that this was going to be difficult and problems could come from any direction, any source at any time. Always knew that. I accepted Sam's invitation anyway, because I thought and I hope maybe I could contribute to rebutting some of those problems and addressing some of those problems. I was under no illusions. This was going to be tough. But one of the commendable ideals was that a committee might separate or put some sort of layer of separation between political considerations and technical considerations of merit of particular applications. It would help insulate maybe the council, the mayor, the politicians, so they could say to constituents, to businesses, to nonprofits, we're not dealing with that. You got to go, in front of the committee. Your application is going to go to the committee. I thought that had some benefits, and that we were formed with agreed upon criteria that we would follow, and that we could say to applicants, we're following criteria that are given to us by the council. We don't have a choice. We have to follow what was given to us. And that was a system that was set up. And again, it was an attempt, I think, to insulate the decision-making process from political interference. All that now is about to break. All of that now is about to break. And the question is going to be, do political considerations win out after all? And if they win out after all, and we're here, the 10 of us, trying to do our best to stick to criteria, be deliberative, have real reasons for what we do, and be forced to express them and put a score and go on the record, so on and so forth. And they're trumped by a council in an election year that just wants to please the public or get votes or get constituents, because what's happening now, this agenda item last night, which I shared with you all, on the agenda, is about an election year politics. So let's get more facts out. Monday the 21st, we voted down 3 nonprofits. One of those nonprofits was the Grange. As you know, Robin Hetrick was there in room 315. It appears as soon as we voted the Grange down, she went downstairs, the town council was still meeting, they had an ordinance committee meeting, spoke to Jason, one of her dear friends, and according to more than one conversation that I've had, Jason was upset instantly and vowed to put it on the agenda. This is the same night we met. Got it? Same night we met. There's a promise to put it on the agenda. At the time Jason made that promise, I'm going to get this on the agenda, he was an officer of the Grange. The next day, and I sent you the memo, Jason, put it on the agenda, and the reversing all three applications appeared on the agenda. Okay. I didn't know at the time that Jason was an officer at the Grange. I found that out on the 27th, today being March 1st. I found that out then. And I was dumbfounded, frankly, that an officer would put his own organization in front of the council and advocate for it and collect votes to reverse us so his organization could get a grant of nearly $200,000. Hard to believe that that would happen, but it did. When I learned that Jason was an officer, shortly thereafter, I wasn't sure. It was too fantastic to believe. I couldn't get my arms around that. Can't be so. But I got it from a super reliable source in a position to know, whose honesty and credibility is unimpeachable. But I went back to Jason, I think you have the emails, and said, are you, or were you an officer of the Grange? He said, I resigned. I said, when? Well, now it comes out. He joined the Grange around October. He became an officer. I got to check the email, but I think it was January. If anyone has a different recollection of these documents, raise your hand, or because I want to make sure it's right. Which means that when Jason became an officer, the application had already been filed by the Grange. Okay. So I wrote to Jason, and he conceded that he was an officer and resigned Tuesday morning. I believe that was the 27th. Through the exchange of emails, it appears that he felt that he could still proceed discussing the Grange's application on the council, but not vote. By not voting, he's conceding that there's a conflict, but still discussing it as riding the second horse. We would never do that. We would not do that. If we were going to recuse ourselves, we're out of the conversation. It's not like Craig Fishbein sits here at the table, advocates for Vogue, and then when it comes time to vote, he sits in the back of the room and doesn't vote. The damage is done when you stir the pot, agitate for your client, say, oh, but I'm not voting because that would be a conflict of interest. No. That's, we would never do that. So it appeared to me that, well, I wanted to know if Jason's motion, which would have been heard on the 28th, last night, it would have been heard. It was ready to go forward. I sent my email out. You have a copy of it. It went to Jason. It went to Vinnie Cervoni, and it went to Janice Small, because I figured they had the responsibility to protect the integrity of the agenda, so on and so forth. I know I'm taking a long time, but this is important. So it came off the agenda last night. It will reappear. The decision on whether or not to overrule us on the three nonprofits, it will reappear, probably not under Jason's name, but someone will put it forward. Now, is this important? Well, of course, because Jason is probably going to reap huge political rewards by doing this. You think, well, there's a violation of the Code of Ethics, that should sting him. No. It won't sting him. It's going to help him. Because he can go around now to all these nonprofits and say, I'm your hero. He can go to the church, pick up 500 votes. He can go to the Hungarian Club, pick up 50 votes. He can go to the Grange, pick up 75 votes. And all that stand with him, all those politicians seeking re-election that stand with him, can do the same. I tried to protect you against the mean committee that was going to deny you, and I overruled them. I was one of the ones that overruled them, because you're a good organization. That throws us under the bus, because we're trying to follow criteria given to us, and they're not. And if you read Jason's justification for overruling us. Sometimes they're factually wrong, or they misinterpret the law. It's deception. Sometimes the council doesn't really understand some of the fine points and may not know what was presented by Jason is. I'll get specific in a minute. I'll get specific in 1 minute, actually. So the benefit of challenging us politically in an election year is huge. So what does that augur for the future? Every nonprofit that we say no to becomes a political opportunity, and that's why it's not going to stop. And Craig was mentioning, well, this could migrate to the business applications too. I'm business friendly. The committee denied, I make the number up, 25 business applications. Those rats, we should overturn them. I will stand with the business community of Wallingford. That's coming, or it may come. I can't promise you that. That may come. So here we are. So we're trying to do our job, keeping the nose to the grindstone, only to provide political speech for people that want re-election. And code of ethics, breached or not breached, doesn't matter. It pays to breach the code of ethics. It pays to misrepresent the criteria. It pays for the council to adopt different criteria. That's where we're at. That's where we're at. Now, I'm going to thank you guys, because you haven't. Let me just get specific on what I'm talking about, the misinformation that has been circulated. And if it gets in the press, suddenly, we have to defend what we're doing, and the misinformation gets out there. So with respect to the Grange, I'm not going to go into, well, maybe I will. Well, with respect to the Grange, they said, they cited language from the consultant. And I talked with the consultant today about some of this stuff.
I didn't hear what you said.
I had a conversation with the consultant today. They're cited, as you know from the emails, Jason is citing language from the consultant. Thank you for. And it says, did the Grange file a copy of 990? This is Jason quoting the consultant's portal, right? The tracking. Did the Grange file a copy of 990? Yes, is what the consultant said. Leading an unsuspecting member of the public or counselor to believe that we got financial information from a 990, and that is not true. The 990 was a receipt, basically, that said the Grange filed something. And I said to the consultant, why was that called a 990? There's no financial information on there. It's like a little postcard. He says, that's what we call it. That's what we call it. We call those 990s, but to a member of the public or the council, seems like we had financial information in front of us, and we did not. That's the false light, this whole issue that we're being put in. It said, or Jason's email said, the documentation supporting the funding request. Yes, meaning the consultant said, we were provided with documentation supporting the funding request. We weren't. Right? Does anyone think we had? No. But this is being cited, despite the facts, to suggest we had information that we never had. So we got the 990s creating a false impression, and the documentation supporting the answer to the documentation question creating false impression. And then the third thing on the Grange, audited financial statement, parenthesis, other financial statement of revenue under 500,000. Yes. That's what it's representing we had in front of us. So this is being circulated. Councilors are impressionable. They say that stupid committee, look what they did. And finally, and maybe the most important, it's being represented that if it complies with ARPA, if the consultant passes it on to us, we are bound by that. Failing to understand the fundamental decision we need to make, just failing to understand it, not inquiring, he never called me, just intentionally turning away from the facts. And this gets to what Amy suggested an hour and a half ago, which we're getting back. Why does the consultant say an application complies with ARPA, and why should we have to be bound by that? What does it matter to us? Let's go over that one more time. The role of the consultant is a little vague and a little gauzy, and we've complained about that, about the vagueness of the charge and that information. The best way to summarize it is the consultant looks over these applications, and if they see a postcard that says 990, or that they call 990, they check the box, yes. They don't look at and say, well, there's no financial information for the committee, because they don't go that far. If there's a nonprofit or a business that is making a ton of money post-COVID, the consultant doesn't scrutinize the financials and say they're not experiencing a hardship. Consultant doesn't get into that level of granularity. The consultant looks at the claim on the application. The claim is, get this is sort of relevant for tonight. The claim is they're going to use the money to pay for staff. That's legitimate on ARPA, illegitimate on the local criteria. Or let's say debt. Let me change the example. The local criteria is much more restrictive than the federal criteria, but the consultant is only looking at the federal criteria. So they look at the claim on the application. Is the application claim money that's legitimate under ARPA? They check yes. But it may not be legitimate under ours, and therein lies the problem. So saying that because it complies with ARPA and the consultant passed it on to us, therefore we're bound by that, is a false equivalency. It's just plain misinformation. Carl.
Wow.
There's more to say.
Were you expecting it?
There's more to say. But I know I've taken a long time.
No, no.
I've taken a long time
No, you did a great job.
because this could be it for us.
I understand.
What do you think?
No, listen, I echo a lot of what's been said. Just to simplify this for myself, I mean, we have a process. There's been full transparency. There are transcripts which are available to the town council, the citizens of this town. We are provided and we're implementing a very objective process with widely accepted criteria with our voting system. It's worked very well. I think this clearly, you're right, it's been politicized, and I find that challenging our credibility as a committee. And I think that's unethical. So I don't think it's necessary for us to provide a supplemental report or presentation to the council. That to me is unnecessary, and it goes against what we were tasked to do. And that's how I feel.
Jackie? Take a pass if you want. I'm just following the usual protocol.
I agree that the minutes, the notes, everything, our documentation is a perfect report. If they want to see our reasoning, then they can certainly look at that, etc. So I'm not in agreement in providing a further report than we already have done each night here. I guess I have two other things. When we submit, or when you state, our group recommends to the council, in you saying we recommend, we're then deferring our vote to the council. So I guess in theory they do have the right to overrule because we're only recommending, right? So that's one thought. And then
let me just engage quickly, and I'm not going to stall you. All we have is a recommendation, and they have the power to appropriate. They have the discretion to appropriate or not. The question I'm raising is it an abuse of discretion the way they're doing it? No question they have the legal power to appropriate despite what we do. The question is, how do you use that power, and under what circumstances, why, so on and so forth?
I guess for me that's up to them. I mean, I think then why are we here, but that's up to them. If we recommend and they want to change it, then all the power to them, I guess. I just don't know what our purpose is then. And then the other thing, and I only half-assed watch town council meetings.
Oh, come on.
I know.
What did you say?
Breaks his heart.
I'm sure it does. So I thought that I did hear, again, I don't watch all of it, when the nonprofits were presented, I thought that the town council, someone added up, maybe you, I'm not really sure, added up the amount that the nonprofits were requesting, and the town council approved to increase the amount that was awarded to the nonprofit. So I guess the other part, so if that is true, if it was all totaled up, then why don't we just give the nonprofits what they're asking for? And I'm in the
That
social
may be where
service-
this is going, so hold on to that thought and hold on to your yes vote, because you may find a lot of support to that, more than you expect.
Same is done for the businesses, just so that you know.
And that's another, yeah.
The reason,
Let's
yeah,
go.
okay.
Let's go.
Don't.
Rob,
Are we still on the public?
anywhere you want to
No,
go.
but it's still a public meeting? Or
You
private?
betcha it is.
Okay, good. I just want to make sure sometimes I say things that I want to take back, but, okay, so, really, listen, we can't control other people's action. When we agree to be on this committee, we
Hold on.
agree.
God damn.
Your soliloquy might be gone.
Did I inadvertently?
Well,
You're still recording, right?
Right, yeah, but getting it from here to the town is,
Tougher.
yeah,
Is that
the
any-
files are too big to
Here's,
put on thumb drives.
we'll fix it. Can you MP4 that?
Can I what?
MP4 that?
Yeah, but the files are huge. Usually you have to run thumb drive to transfer them. But we could,
All right, we'll talk.
because I save it to my laptop and then you're gonna put it on somebody's laptop and get it to the town.
I can get it to my laptop here.
Well, here's
Because it plugs right in.
what I'm getting at. When I close my laptop, I inadvertently shut it down.
I think it was a while ago,
Yeah,
because I've been looking at.
before we began, but
I've
this
been
discussion.
admiring how sleek it is for a while.
I was thinking that earlier. I swear to God, it's like, that's a nice machine.
Yeah.
Oh, you're gonna have to repeat that all over.
Yeah.
So that was a very good description.
So go back to page
No.
1 of your notes.
Well,
So I think,
No, because it
the
is
long and
here,
short will have to just
And this
sup-
could
we'll
just
have
be
to-
uploaded to somebody's.
have to be
Just take it from tap and vine and go.
Yeah.
It's early.
Recording in progress.
we're going to pick up in a second. So afterwards, I would just want to talk to you about what are the obstacles
because
of lifting your recording out.
Yeah, it's an MP4, whatever.
Perfect, okay. We'll
I
figure
save
it
it on my laptop at home, but we just load it on a laptop and then getting it transferred to the town website is.
We'll figure it out.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, all right. Sorry.
Nope, not at all.
Glad you
listen, I try to simplify everything. I can't control, or we can't control what other people do. This committee, when it was formed out of political dysfunction. And I'm very happy Craig is a member of this committee, by the way. And I know, I felt when I was on this committee, I felt because of the situation, how it was going to be received. We have behaved, the council should be taking their example on how to function from us. And I'd be happy to stand in front of the council and tell them right to their face. I'm on the EDC. I went through this process a few months ago over other types of instances, how they mishandled. It just expresses some of the incompetence of some of the council members, in my opinion, personal opinion, on how this was set up to begin with. Two sets of criteria between what the consultants considered successful and the criteria they gave us. That should have been a very uniform. We should have had, if need be, meetings among all of us so we're all on the same page. That didn't happen. Okay. But again, we can't control what they do. We were tasked when we agreed to be on this committee to go through these applications to the best of our ability. We're all professional, intelligent, successful people, and I make no apologies for that. And I think that we should continue with our task. And all the comments that you made earlier are very, very valid. But I don't think that changes what we're supposed to do and what we're tasked to do. And in my opinion, I think we should just continue with what we know is the right way to do and choose that path. If they choose, some of those folks on the council choose a different path, I don't want to lower myself, in my opinion, this is my personal opinion, to some of their levels. And they only represent the whole council. There's a couple of people, and some of the questions are going to be legitimate. But certainly, I think that we should continue on the professional, objective manner that we're considering these applications, and hand them to the council. And as Jackie said, it's always been their premise to overrule us if they chose to. And but we have a task to do, and I think we should do it. And we've been done very professionally so far. And I'm very proud of that, and I think we should continue. And I think, Vinny Testa has 2 weeks just like we do, and that's plenty of time for him to listen through to the tapings and review the paperwork if he so chooses.
Christian.
So part of me questions why we're even here on both sides. And what's the purpose and the end state? No matter what we say, it can be turned over at the whim of a handful of counselors. If the case is that we're just merely a suggestion, then in reality the council should just be voting on these themselves. The criteria that was set forth that certain individuals seem to want to dig down deep into what each of us are thinking and go through that process, you gave a half-ass at best evaluation criteria scorecard. If you were to look at any town, just for Google, at what their scoring sheets for a year ago or 18 months ago look like as part of these things, you would see 5 points here, 2 points here, 7 at best in one other area. You gave us a pile of crap that we are now working through to help you help your job. But again, if we're going down this road, take it and do it yourselves. We could make a motion to reaffirm our decision on the Grange and rebut each of those statements on a one-by-one basis and have it read into at the next town council meeting. We could rebut I only see this as the grain is an issue. The other two that were denied, we got a great email, everybody saw it, I think, from the Hungarian Club.
Yeah.
Very, very, very gracious. It was important. So for me here, this is about the Grange, this is about an inappropriate relationship that was known about prior to the process, during the process, and oh wait, the speed limit just changed because I don't like this ruling, let me get to it and figure something out. So I would support a motion to reaffirm by the group, to reaffirm the Grange and to rebut each of the individual facts to be read into the record. So if there's any type of political gain, for this one, we shut it down now instead of just letting it pass and letting this whole thing fix itself and solve itself through a number of different mechanisms over the next 2, 3, 4, 5 months. I didn't realize this was going to be a multi-year process. But it certainly seems that way. If we're going through this, let's evaluate, let's take a look at what we did last week, recap, and make sure we're all still okay with that, and move forward type of thing. And maybe there should have been a disclosure up front for individual counselors. Were there any of them we would have liked the committee to cherry pick ourselves? Pay special attention to these 20, because they're important to us. That we're not given that charge, and it would be asinine if we were to do stuff. We are doing this as responsible parties to the town in which we love, we live, and support, and we are making sure the due diligence is done by somebody. The consultant did us no favor, and perhaps, the lowest bidder and the least amount of time that was spent to put something forward, and inconsistencies as to what is a complete application and incomplete. There is a wide, sorry, going on too long, but there is a wide swath of what's, if you want to take a look at and go ahead and approve all the nonprofits that the consultant said was fine, make a motion, do it, done. We're done. You want to take a look at the businesses, you want to do the same process for the business and say, fine, do it, done, that's it. We're not at the situation that we have a finite amount of money that we are trying to appropriate, the requests aren't over the amount that have been allocated to this. If that was the case, then we would be paring down each of these individually to meet a budget concern and everything else. They came in well lower than expected on both sides of the fence here for nonprofit and for-profit. So, you know, there seems to be common thinking that if the application's in order, give them the money and so forth, without thinking about what this means to legal and town corporate counsel, what kind of contracts would have to be, you know, ripped up. We know this is only the beginning of the process here to when people ultimately get money. So that's my 2 cents.
Some of your comments link with Amy's. I'll get to that in a minute.
So, just briefly, I do think, because I didn't address the Jason Zandri part, I do think they're in separate buckets. I do think in response to Vinny Testa's request, I think there's enough information there, and I don't think that we should have to do any more than that. The problem I have with the Jason Zandri situation is that we're all fully aware that these are recommendations. I have no problem with them overturning what we do, but I would prefer it to be at the end. Like, we should be able to do all of our work, and then if there's an appeals process for people that were turned down, then that can be when the process starts. But if you start undermining what we're doing the night we did it, then you're basically bullying us into doing what you want. You're basically telling us to, you know, if we realize that every time we overturn, or every time we do not recommend an application, that it's going to get overturned, then that's going to influence the way that we behave first. So it's intentional. It's sending a message. It's saying, like, you know, basically do what I want you to do. And then the second piece of it is, why are we here then? You know, why am I doing this? Why are any of us doing this? Like, if we're here on a Wednesday night, sitting in Hubcap, which is very nice, I've never been here before, but why in God's name are we going to do this 20 more times, maybe? You know what I mean? If we're banging out 6 to 8 applications a night and we got 140, I mean, we're in for the long haul here. So if every time we do something it's undone, then what the heck? I won't swear, I promised I wouldn't. My kids. What the heck are we doing here? Like, I do agree. We shouldn't, and we shouldn't score another thing until they figure out what it is that they want to do. Because I'm not gonna. I don't want to call it a waste of time, because I think what we do is important. I think we act really, really nicely. I think that we're a good team. I think this is a really good process. And you know what? I voted in favor of the Grange, but I agree with your decision not to fund it, because you made up valid points about why that application shouldn't have been funded. And I agree with all of you. So I'm a person that voted in favor of it, and I'm saying I vote with the group, because that's how we behave. And that's the way things ought to be. So I won't talk anymore. Me.
Can I took some notes. I just wanted to, can I just address some of this stuff?
Go ahead.
So the presentation of the council.
You're jumping ahead.
Yeah, I'm sorry. The presentation of the council aspect, I disagree with. You know, once again, they can review our minutes. I mean, I think when we did all of that stuff, it may have even been video, so, you know, they could watch it, right? I already know that at least one of them is talking about changing the way that we score, to throw out the top and the bottom, and then to average the middle. Well, I mean, that's micromanaging. You know, if you don't have respect for us, then just do it yourself, as Chris so aptly said. You know, me sitting on this body is not easy, because, you know, you guys are not elected officials, and I respect that, right? But I've got to put my neck on the line every time I score accordingly based upon what my heart says, right? So any other counselor could be sitting at this table doing that, but they chose not to. Why the money was added. So when we initially went through the process, we kept on asking the mayor how much money is available for the nonprofits and the businesses. Originally, the calculation came out that the amount of requests was greater than the amount of money that had been set aside by government. So the council did not want that to be an impediment. It didn't want us to be sitting here saying, well, we've already appropriated $2 million, and while this is a great application, we don't have any money left, right? So we didn't want applications to be denied based upon lack of funding. So ultimately we said, okay, what's the max that was asked for? Businesses and nonprofit, we're going to put that money aside not to impede our work. That was why that happened. You know, it's override, backup and review. I don't know what the hell it is. You know, our votes are by 7. The council's votes are by 5. So that's an interesting dynamic here. That if something failed by the vote that was created by the council and put upon us, and yet the overriding can be by a lesser vote count, that just like undercuts us like at its very core. The Hungarian Club is perhaps just as political as the Grange. I'll tell you, last night, because the agenda item was on the agenda, there were representatives at the council meeting for the Hungarian Club. I have reason to believe that similar forces that ended up with the Grange ended up with objection to the Hungarian Club, and I'll leave it at that. The Zion application, you know, as you may recall at the last meeting, Zion was the highest grade I've given anything. I gave it a 90, but it came in just below. And it was like 73.55 or something like that. I was disappointed. I said that at the end of the meeting many times. But I was respectful for the system. And my thought was, if this came before the council, I wouldn't vote to overturn it, even though I was disappointed, because I have respect for what we're doing. For me to get up there and to overturn the decision that we made is not respectful to you guys and the work. So that puts me in another difficult place. But, you know, ultimately, I think we got to know what, you know, are we just here for show?
Let me go back to Amy.
Yeah.
Just real quick, one sentence. Let's keep in mind, we're talking about one councilman.
No, we're not.
We're not.
No.
That motion would have passed.
Okay.
That's my intel.
Okay, well, that's good to know. I wanted to make sure we were keeping things in the context. And thank you for correcting.
It wasn't a rogue.
Enlightening me, I should say, yes.
He was rogue when he started it, but the political opportunity immediately appeared to at least 5.
Well, I'd like to save 20 nights of sitting here too, if that's the case. I mean, I hate to say that. It's not what we signed up for. We signed up to do this responsibly.
Yeah,
but I'll let you continue.
we're not done with that thought, because this is a difficult. Yeah. I want to go back to Amy, and if it had stayed on the agenda, no one was more surprised than me when it came off the agenda. No one was more surprised, but I had prepared to make the case for our procedures and so on and so forth, just like you said, if given the chance. I'm not sure I would have been given the chance. But I would have made that case, and my thinking was I would have started out by reading those 2 letters that we got, one from the church and one from the Hungarian Home, and go through everything we do, including the code of ethics, and, you know, just including sending agendas by email to all the applicants, including sending them a report after we're done, including our round robin system. I would, you know, if given a chance, I would explain that. That would have been sort of what you're talking about. We're in sabbatical, 100%. The question is means and methods as to how to get that done in a timely way. And so it's not done after the fact, you know, not too late, because once they start overturning us, it doesn't end anymore. It keeps going. It can't be accused of cherry picking their 3 favorites. You know, they're gonna keep rolling on it. So it has to be done in a timely way. And timing is an issue on this, because I'm not going to be here in the middle of March when the council meeting comes up. If it appears on March 14, I'm not here. They may want it to come up on the 14th, intentionally, when I'm not here. That may be part of the thing. I'm not making a secret. I'm just not going to be here. I can't be here. Anyway, so educating the council on what we do is what I was planning to do, and depending on how everyone thinks about it, if we get that opportunity, people could from the committee could show up and weigh in and add in stuff that I forgot, or clarify what I muffed, or just, that can be done and should be done. The other thing I've been thinking about, and I really don't want to do this, is at some point I write an op-ed. Not directed at, I'd have to,
Not directed towards one person.
I'd have to wordsmith that very carefully, but it'd be what you had in mind, but in writing. If we're shut down. And it just depends on things. I don't really want to do that, but I may need to do that.
How credible is that possibility of being shut down?
If it had remained on the agenda last night, I was going to make a motion to disband us.
Okay,
Well,
yeah, no, I agree. Yeah.
What's the consensus on that vote? Your gut. Would it pass? Would it?
I think we're being recorded. I don't think enough people want to do the work. They just want to be the king. We do the work, and that ultimately they override. And without looking at the backup, we saw the email. I asked two of those individuals, "Did you listen to the meeting?" And they said no. And yet they were going to vote to override us. What the hell?
They didn't even have the applications.
You're talking so you're saying that there were people ready to vote last night against what we did in the previous meeting
They were ready to side with Jason.
without looking at any of the materials?
Yeah,
Just wanted
because
to
they saw
clarify that.
Jason's stuff.
So, here's my thing. This is a communications issue in that you can get out in front, but no, you get one person out in front, rah, they were denied, that's terrible, and we need to educate on why that was. When I first started this committee, I was like, this is going to be so easy. There's enough money for everybody, and all we have to do is read them, and it'll be great. And then we get into this, and there are some that, as a steward of taxpayer dollars, you cannot honestly say this is a good application. We have not approved some, and people on the outside don't understand why that is. They're like, you got enough money, why not? And they don't understand the criteria we're working with. Good or bad, and it's not a perfect system. There is going to be a group at the end that, what does the council want to do with the group that is denied? Is there appeal process or something like that? Which should happen at the end, not let's light our hair on fire the day it happens. And so that's where I was coming from. But I like Chris's idea of, reiterating that we were reiterating our vote on the range.
But at the end of the day, we have no control over the process by which we are overruled. It's arbitrary vote, possibly it would be by 5 based upon the council rules.
But did all the councilors who approved us, would then
Yes.
that's what surprised
Yes,
me.
Somewhat, not all.
Not all. 3 won't.
3 won't.
Yeah, I know.
You're one.
Okay, let's get back before it's a free-for-all. Did you want to add, Bob Gross? Because we're
No,
going around and around.
I think we all understand what's happening here, and I think we can move on from it. It's a question of whether there's two camps here to make a presentation to the council to explain it more, which I say no. I think they're the ones that set the rules. They can listen. And I think we don't move ahead on any of the not-for-profits because those seem to be the ones they're going after right now. They're not. Now. Yeah. If they make a move to go after the for-profits, then we're completely done.
So I'm going to skip over you because you jumped in it. So over to everybody, but Jesse, when you were talking, this jumped in my mind. If you had a crystal time travel, if you could time travel to a date in May, and on that council meeting, all of our rejections on nonprofits are overturned. You saw that happening now. Would you want to work on nonprofits? You know, this is time travel, it's a fantasy. You know in advance that they're going to reverse us. Would you still want to work and be diligent? And this kind of
Absolutely.
goes, Rob, to you. Put yourself, put yourself in a time traveling machine. We work, we know it's futile, we know they're going to overrule, we know they're going to ignore, we know they're going to misrepresent, we know they're going to put political criteria in front of our criteria. We know we're going to be criticized impliedly. We know they're making political gains on our shoulders, on our backs, on our necks. You know that's going to happen. And you say, yeah, we're going to still do it. I mean, think about, we're going to come around, think about that. But you mentioned that too.
Is that a rhetorical question?
No, it's not really a rhetorical question, because that's how I'm feeling.
Yeah, no, so my short answer is, I always anticipated that that everything that we voted in favor of recommending or not recommending wasn't set in stone. So I've always gone forth with that notion. I've always been comfortable with that. I always understood that we aren't the true arbiters of this money. We just make recommendations. What I don't, if at the end of this process, if everyone came forward that was rejected and the town council opened its arms and said you can have all the money, I probably would feel like, man, I spent a lot of time doing that and they just gave away all the money. I would be disappointed. However, if they're going to do it every time someone gets denied, it's worse. See, to me, I believe in an appeals process. We are not beyond making mistakes. Maybe we would look at something differently later. Maybe they bring something forward. It says, oh my gosh, whatever. The consultant there was a paper under his chair or her chair, whoever, something like that. I don't care. But if it's done gradually, if we just keep getting overturned, no, I don't want to do it at all. And to your point, then probably not. I would probably be more than annoyed that we went and did this all, and then they just gave all the money away anyway. Because I think Bob said it like the first night, we just give all the money away.
No, that wasn't serious.
No, I know. I'm not saying seriously, but that's the mentality. Like if it's, why do this? Why make 3 of them? Why do all of it? And then just be like, just pull the bus up.
Right, because we've all taken this seriously. Everybody at this table is taking this seriously, and we all know that. And for them to do what they want, you should explain, the vote seemed to be against us by more than a majority last night, correct?
I'm not sure Craig wants to comment, but I will. My information is it would have passed last night if it stayed on the agenda.
But
it appears
with one abstaining or recusing himself.
Well, Jason in his email said.
But that's only for the Grange. He has to recuse himself.
Yeah, that's right. That's only for the Grange.
Why was it pulled? I don't think we've answered that question. Why was the motion pulled last night?
Because I wrote the email telling them that it was Jason's motion, Jason's agenda item. It shouldn't go forward because of his problems with the code of ethics. Okay. And I used the phrase, fruit of the poisonous tree. His resignation is a little pretextual to allow him to participate in any way. So I said, pull it. Or I asked. Well, I guess I said. I don't know but I said, pull it. So they pulled it, but it's coming back.
Who's that? Was it Janice that recommended it, or was it Vinny, or who pulled it from the agenda?
I'll never know. Probably both of them. I mean, Vinny Cervoni has more authority over that than Janice. I mean, they probably got together because I sent it to both of them and agreed.
But you have to, at the beginning of the meeting last night, when he says he pulls it, and I think he says this for not all of them, but for some of them, he says this can reappear on the agenda. Yeah. And he said that last night.
No question.
Yeah. So we're going to probably see it. They're probably going to see it again.
Yeah, they will.
It's just Craig and the other 8 are going to see it again on the agenda. When?
Probably the 14th.
Okay, there you go. What? So that's why I say we pause till that on the not-for-profits pause.
It's our next meeting.
So just do businesses. Yeah. Just do businesses till the 14th.
And you're away that week.
Let's see what happens.
So one option, and we got a lot of options. We got to begin to narrow down the course of action going forward here. The way I'm thinking about things, I really don't want to lift a finger on nonprofits anymore, knowing that this is, in my view, inevitable, that they're going to grant all the nonprofit applications anyway because there's political rewards. It's possible that something that we do between now and a date in the future may change their minds, a la informing them what we talked about. It's possible that could happen. But the businesses don't present as an immediate problem because the political rewards aren't as great unless at the very end, as I said before, many of them get together and say, okay, we now have a list of 25, and I think the odds of that happening are better than 50-50 because there's political rewards for a group of businesses that can be put on the agenda. One business, no, not so much. But if we had a time travel machine and we could see that, yeah, that's what they're going to do, I'm not certain of that, but yeah, that's what they're going to do. I said, what are we doing here? Just give it to them. Just give it to them and let them have their way with it. And but let me get more specific because we've got to begin to narrow it down. Ideally, there should be a test vote on those 3 applications. And you should put that on the agenda yourself. Ideally, there should be a test vote on those 3, and so we know how it's going, rather than wait to the end.
Put it on the council agenda?
Yeah.
No, I think the item appearing, although withdrawn, on last night's council agenda creates a problem, not only for the nonprofit application, but for the business applications. And I don't want to I'm objecting to that body reviewing in that form those applications. So if I put anything on the agenda, it'll be to get rid of this group.
That's fair too.
And I love you all.
But one pathway forward is pausing the nonprofits until there's further developments. Another is pausing everything until there's further developments. And the other option is going ahead as if this never happened. And that's a bad paraphrase of Rob, your thinking. It's a bad paraphrase, and you'll come around and you'll tighten that up as to what you really want. But it seems to me those are the 3. That pause could be permanent or it could be temporary. We could decide that later. But
vote on it now?
well, we're going to. Let's not.
We can make a motion.
We'll get to you. We'll make sure that you get that. Make sure you get that motion. So, again, context. The nonprofits didn't show up tonight because I called them off. We have a meeting on the 7th. There's some nonprofits listed. And I'm proposing to call them off and fill up the agenda with businesses. I'd have to amend the agenda because the agenda would be too light if we take the nonprofits off. But I'm looking at this problem as serious enough so that we need to get a reading as to whether or not we're wasting our time. And if the reading is, if all the available evidence we're wasting our time, I frankly don't want to waste it. I don't want to be beaten up in public, mischaracterized, put in a false light, taken advantage of by some politician who wants to go around to nonprofits to collect easy votes. I think that's an abuse of discretion. I don't think it's honorable, and I don't think it should happen, and we shouldn't enable that. So keep in mind as we go around the table, pause 1, and it could be permanent or temporary. I don't want to get split hairs on, but pause pause just the nonprofits, pause both, or forge ahead. Those are the 3 general choices that I can see. As we go around, if there's a 4th option, bring it up. Bring it up. The public education piece is absolutely got to be part of this. One way that's got to be in there. We just got to figure out when, where, how that works. But it absolutely has to be, we got to get our case out. There's no question about it. So. Carl?
I believe we should not touch the nonprofits, absolutely. And I think we should forge ahead and continue with the business applications.
And we should what? Forge
ahead
with
the business application, absolutely. Until otherwise stopped.
Jackie?
I agree.
Rob?
In light of the circumstances that took place the other night, which are new, when we agreed to be on this committee, I agree with what Carl said, that we should continue to forge with the business applications, absolutely. But because of the events of the other night, hold off on the nonprofits as you had suggested. I think that's the way to do it.
Chris?
So the nonprofits, for me, should definitely be held off. However, I'm inclined to vote for both because it is, in my opinion, inevitable that this will come up under a business circumstance as well. And if it comes up at the end of the process, if it comes up in the middle, I mean, we're right back to where we were. They're both, it's an issue for both sides of the application and where the influence in for political gain, for personal gain, for what, I mean, it's not just political gain. I mean, there's clearly an item where this is personal gain that took place. I mean, a board member of an organization, period. We have to recuse ourselves. We went through all this. We know where we are. Craig's getting up and standing, and pacing because he is recused from X, Y, and Z. There's no let me sit at the table, but I just won't vote, but let me talk anyway, kind of thing. So it's inevitable. I vote both. It's inevitable that it's going to happen to the businesses unless it's taken care of right now. And if it ends up being disbanding of the organization from our side, which would be yet another committee in this town dissolving or having a mass resignation because powers that be can't get their act together, so be it.
Jesse?
Yeah, I'm kind of in favor of pausing. I would be amenable to doing the businesses. I'm more in favor of pausing everything, but I want to preface all of that with saying I feel awful that we're not doing what we're supposed to be doing. Like, if we really brass tacks what this is about, COVID happened, people suffered, there's money, we're trying to give it away. I don't view what we're doing as there being anything wrong with it, so I take offense to the idea that we're going to be overruled in real time. I would probably side on not reviewing any more because I'd like to know what it is exactly is going to happen at the, how things are going to move forward. Just because, if it only takes 5 votes, then vote to give all the money away and just call it a day. Right?
I'm going to summarize what I think you said. I think you said you're leaning toward your first choice would be pause both. Is that?
Yeah, because I feel like ultimately it's going to be inevitable.
Okay.
Pause both until we get further.
I'm just trying to take the pulse of the room.
Yeah,
So
I'm feeling like pause both.
Okay, Amy.
This is just terrible. I mean, I think back to when when the council was talking about this, we're going to do all this for businesses, and the nonprofits lobbied so hard to expand for them because, they demonstrated so well that there's a need for assistance on the nonprofit end. And some of the applications we've seen have been stellar as far as delivering help to people who need it. And here we are, because of politics, considering pausing our operations, not delivering money to people because of politics. It's just terrible. So I've gone around and around in my head, what to do. Part of me is like, let's just continue on and as if, and to put our line in the sand, and as if we believe that what we're doing is important and the proper way to do it and the way to deliver the money to people. But I feel like that's futile. I mean, yeah. So
But you say the last thing.
I feel like that would be futile. We all have lots of other places we could spend our time, and I feel like putting a line in the sand like that is futile. So I guess I'm coming down to because I feel like if we pause nonprofits, it's just going to happen with businesses anyway. So I'm coming down with pausing.
Pausing both.
Yeah.
I'll keep it short. I'm for just pausing the not-for-profits, but I can see the point of pausing both, and we'll go with that if that is the consensus in the room.
Great.
So I'm in favor of pausing both just because of everything that I've heard, but I will, as we got to the selection of the committee and all of that stuff, the council took a lot of heat about delay and blame, and it's your fault this money isn't being gotten out. And I don't should this body decide to pause, I don't want to see the op-eds from Steve Knight about how, we did a bad job. So I would respectfully ask that you put together the op-ed, that you sort of, talking about our process, and it's not us that created this problem, it's politics, bad unethical conduct that get us to this place. And, you know how to do it, but I don't want, us to make the decision, and I'll get them 750. And then us to get the blame for a reasoned decision here.
Point well taken, and we're going to try to fold that consideration in. Let me say something before we go around again. We could meet again on the 7th, handle no business on the 7th except this issue, and see how the dust settles. Many of you may want to go back to your respective appointers, I don't know. But maybe it's worth sleeping on it for a night or two or three or four and see how the terrain looks on the 7th. Nothing is lost. To your point, we are way ahead of the town. They have a logjam of applications that we've acted on and they haven't. So we are way ahead of that. 1 week probably isn't going to matter. The optics, I will deal with it the best I can. I have no doubt in my mind I'm going to get a call from the Record Journal reporter, and I'll start your concern and your concern, and then follow up as I need to. And I kind of like that idea of sleeping on it for a week, not losing any of the thoughts, that. Rob.
As a support, because I feel I'm very proud to be part of this committee and to have met all of them. And if you write an op-ed piece, I'd be, I don't want all the focus to be on Mike Brodinski. I'd be happy and proud to put my name next to yours, and I think everybody in this committee should put our names collectively.
Well, then what we would do, I would circulate it.
So that this is the body speaking, it's not Mike speaking.
Yeah.
You should not be taking this heat, we're in this together, and so I would vote to put all of our names on that op-ed.
So what I could start thinking about, putting it together, and then everyone would put their name on it. The danger is that it's very difficult to write a joint document because everyone wants to weigh in and change, and it's very hard to do that. I've had experience on that. The more hands on there. So the scrivener, that would be me, needs a lot of latitude to put words to paper. And
you write very well. How many
wait,
times
hold it. You don't know how many drafts I go through. You have no idea how agonizing it is.
It takes me 3 weeks to do an op-ed. Got it.
That is not to say, call me up. It's better if you call me up and say, the phrasing on this could be better and you're probably going to be right. Or add a little something here and you're probably going to be right. So, I'll take the first swing at it, and I'll go through 3 or 4 drafts myself, circulate it, and then everyone weigh in. If your suggestion is not adopted by me, don't take offense. There's only so much that can be done, especially with a word limit, and it may have to figure something out to try to get
it, could we get 600 times 10?
Yeah, right.
I think the key is to write it in such a way that this is an update to the community about the work we're doing, not as an attack on any.
Oh no, you're absolutely right.
So you understand? Yeah, this is not an attack on any.
No. You're
it's simply an update and give everybody enlightenment what we're doing.
Yeah.
And how we're doing it.
Yeah. No. You're absolutely right. And usually the way I write, the first draft I get the anger out. The second draft I get the frustration out. And the third draft I tend to get serious.
Well, where's the snarkiness come in?
What's that?
Where does the snarkiness come in?
The snarkiness? Yeah. All the time.
Well, you could You could also do part 1, part 2. You've done that.
Right.
I have done
I
part
don't think
one.
they could do that.
Therefore,
This is not gonna die.
can we agree on this, that we'll meet again on the 7th? By the 7th, you will have had a couple of days to look at something. And we won't do any business on the 7th, and we'll decide from there where to go. So it's a pause on the 7th. We'll discuss where we are, circulate the op-ed. Don't lose any of your sentiments, because I like them all. I like pausing both. I like pausing one. Does that suit everybody? All right, let's not take any votes. I think we can, that's just what we'll do.
It also might make sense also to, if the group agrees, also get that out into maybe talk to Tarn and maybe get into the magazine as well, because that reaches a completely different audience than the Record Journal out there. What was that?
The lead times on that are a lot longer.
Yeah, I mean, you have to
You gotta find out
timing.
what's gonna be published.
The timing, I'm just trying to make sure we reach.
If it comes out in July.
It comes out,
No, if it comes out in July, it's not good, but if it comes out in May or April, sure.
That was quarterly.
Ours is quarterly, yeah. Okay.
Make a motion to adjourn?
Yeah, we all set?
Second.
All right, no, any objective adjourning, then we are adjourned.